Hello and welcome to you all. I don't know how many people out there are watching us, but wherever you are, a really big welcome to you. So we're in the shrine room of the London Buddhist Centre. The London Buddhist Centre is in Bethnal Green in East London, and my name is Devadatta. And next to me is Sanghajit,
Hello.
A very good friend of mine.
Welcome.
And facing me are our tech team, our loyal tech team, who've been doing lots of the tech work for these, what are they? These sessions, these talks and sessions. So today what we've got is we're going to start with a meditation. I'm going to lead a meditation, a loving kindness meditation. And then Sanghajit is going to give a talk, a half-hour talk on Devadatta. Devadatta was one of the cousins of the Buddha, and he's going to talk about Devadatta. So that should be fun. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have a break. So we are having a break, so don't worry. There will be a comfort break where you can go to the toilet or make yourself a cup of tea. It'll only be a 5-minute break. And then we come back and there'll be another meditation. And then Sanghajit will talk about his talk for a little while. And then we'll invite you to ask questions. So do feel free, if you think of something, if you've got a question at any time, you can put that in the chat, is that right? And our tech team will read it out to us at the appropriate time. So there's things to think about. Yes, don't worry about going to the loo. You've got a chance to do that later on. And if you've got any questions, put them in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to lead a meditation now. So this is a meditation on loving kindness. It'll be about 20 minutes, roughly, maybe a little bit longer, a few minutes longer. And it's a lovely meditation. If you haven't done it before, it's a great meditation. And if you have done it before, then I'm sure you know it's a really interesting meditation. I love it because it's a very practical meditation. In a sense, I can say it's actually kind of changed my life in many ways. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk a little bit about meditation and then we'll do it. So the meditation's got a number of stages, and between each stage I'm going to ring this bell. It kind of sounds like this. And I'll ring the bell at the beginning and then between each of the stages. So it's basically got 5 stages to it. And in each of those stages, we're cultivating loving kindness to a particular person or a particular group of people. So in the first stage, we actually start with ourselves. And you may think, well, that's a bit peculiar. Why do you start with yourself? And we start with ourselves actually for a very practical reason. When I'm feeling good about myself, I feel good about other people. When I'm feeling kind of generous to myself, it's easy to be generous to other people. When I'm feeling open with myself, I can be open with other people. So we start with ourselves because to have a positive sense of yourself is very important, and it helps us have a positive sense of others. So in the first few minutes, we're cultivating a positive sense of ourselves. And I'll tell you a bit about how we're going to do that later. So that's the first stage. Second stage, we focus on a good friend. So we cultivate good feelings towards our good friend. So that's a fairly straightforward stage. In the next stage, the third stage, we're cultivating positivity towards what I'm going to call a neutral person. So a neutral person is, well, it's kind of most of the world in a sense, because it's all the people that you don't have any strong feelings for. You don't hate them, you don't like them, you come across them, they may serve you in the supermarket, or they may check your ticket as you get on a train or the bus or whatever. They're an ordinary person. a person you could meet in the street. So that's the neutral person. And as I say, most of the world are neutral people for you. You neither hate them nor love them. They're just people out there. So that's the third stage. Fourth stage, a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. The fourth stage, we're cultivating loving kindness towards a person that we find a bit difficult. Not somebody we really, really hate, just somebody we find a bit difficult. And then in the fifth stage is kind of free for all. We bring in all the other people that we'd like to kind of be on good terms with, be in good, positive relationship with. So you bring in your friends, your family, perhaps colleagues at work. You bring everybody in, and just pile in. All right. So the way we do this, how do we cultivate this positivity? So I'm going to give you a short phrase, and in the first stage it'll be, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. So you say that to yourself, silently to yourself, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. And it's not like a mantra, you don't just, or an affirmation, you don't just repeat it, may I be well, may I be happy, gobble it out like that. You actually kind of need to dwell on the words. So you sort of say, may I be well. And you kind of realize that actually that is something you want. You do want to be well. Yeah? You really do, don't you? If you think about it, we all want to be well. I don't like being sick. I'm obnoxious when I'm sick, so it's good for the whole world when I'm well. It's good for me, it's good for everybody. And may I be well, may I be happy. Is anyone who doesn't want happiness? I think not. We all want happiness. It's something, well, that's what we're doing most of our time, isn't it? We're seeking happiness. And if we want it for ourselves, then we want it for everybody else. So if I want it for myself, I want it for my good friend. I don't want my good friend to be sick, I want my good friend to be happy. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering. And again, that's a universal, isn't it? Everybody in the world wants to be free from suffering. We wish it for ourselves, we wish it for all others. It's not only painful to be suffering yourself, it's painful to see others suffering. You know, when we see images of people who are suffering, and there are lots of people suffering at the moment, aren't there? In all over the world. People seriously suffering. So we could bring those to mind, those people to mind. All right, so I'm going to take you through this meditation, and I'll take you through the stages. So set yourself up. You can sit in a chair, or you can, it's probably best if you just sit in a chair or wherever you are. It's good to be comfortable. And you'll probably find it easier if you close your eyes. You can do the meditation with your eyes open, but my suggestion is you close your eyes. So just sit comfortably and close your eyes. And just allow the body to soften. Allow the mind to soften. Look for a sense of letting go into the experience, whatever it is. Not trying to be a particular way. If you're uncomfortable in any way, that's okay. Just be with whatever is there. So in the first stage of this meditation, we're going to cultivate kindness towards ourselves. So we're looking for a sense of warmth towards ourselves, friendliness if you like, positivity, kindness towards ourselves. And in the first stage, silently to ourselves, we say, may I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. We just wish that for ourselves and focus on that. Allow our heart to expand and bring warmth and kindness to ourselves. The loving kindness meditation. So you may wish to repeat the words again to yourself, or you may be happy just to dwell on the truth of the words, wishing yourself well, wishing yourself happiness, wishing yourself free from suffering. And just noticing how important those things are to yourself. And really wanting that for yourself. And just allowing kindly thoughts to flow to yourself. Really wishing yourself happiness. Sending kindness from your heart throughout your body. Looking for a deep sense of warmth and positivity towards yourself. Now bringing to mind a friend, a good friend, not a partner, but a good friend, somebody whose company you enjoy. And doing the same for them, wishing them well, wishing them happiness, and wishing them free from suffering. Just dwelling on that and realizing that is what you want for your friend. And just bringing your friend to mind. Perhaps remembering when you last saw them. And just having a sense of your friend. And sending warmth to them from your heart. Really wishing happiness for them. Having a really strong sense of warmth and positivity towards your good friend. Really feeling your heart expanding and good wishes going out to your friend. Now we bring to mind a neutral person, an ordinary person, perhaps a colleague at work who you say hi to but you don't really know them, somebody who packs your groceries in the supermarket. Just an ordinary person. Though we don't know this person, we recognize they're a human being just like us. They have hopes like us and fears like us. They're very much like us. We wouldn't want them to suffer. So we wish them well. We wish them happiness. We wish them freedom from suffering. So just projecting out warmth towards this person, sending them kindness, sending them your good wishes, your blessings if you like. Fellow human being. So now we bring to mind a difficult person, somebody, well, we just find them a bit difficult really. They're not so easy to get on with. But despite that, we recognize here's another human being, not so different from you. We can all be difficult at times. So we recognize our common humanity. Recognize that they have needs like all of us. So we send them our good wishes. We hope that they're well. We hope that they're happy. And we hope that they're free from suffering. So just bringing this difficult person to mind. Notice the resistance to sending them warmth. Just recognize your common humanity with this person. Here's another human being, just like you, was born just like you, and will at some point die just like you. So send them your good wishes, send them warmth, wish them well, wish them happiness, and wish them freedom from suffering. So now, in the last stage, it's a chance to bring everybody you haven't included yet into the meditation. So recollect your friends, perhaps saying their name silently to yourself, wishing them well, and then bringing someone else to mind, wishing them well, and somebody else, friends, relatives, even the ones you don't get on with, colleagues at work, even the ones you don't get on with. So just bring them to mind, send them warmth, send them good wishes. So, just allowing the meditation to come to an end now. Then when you're ready, opening your eyes. So Sanghajit is going to join me now, and I'm not quite sure how long I've known Sanghajit, quite a few years now, and everybody I know is full of admiration for Sanghajit, because Sanghajit has a very demanding job, palliative care nurse. He's got 3 children, and yet he still manages to practice Buddhism very wholeheartedly. And he's an example to us all. So, and I also have a study group which I lead with Sanghajit, which is very enjoyable, and we have great sessions together. But what's going to happen tonight is Sanghajit is going to give us a talk on one of the cousins of the Buddha, rather a naughty one, and called Devadatta. So I'm handing over to Sanghajit now, and he's going to entertain us.
Thank you very much, Priyavadra. Very kind words, thank you. Yes, I do get to see a lot of Priyavadra, which is a great pleasure. He's a good friend of mine, and it's great to be doing this class with him tonight. So yeah, welcome from me, and we're going to be talking about Devadatta, this cousin of the Buddha. The Buddha's rival, yes. Perhaps I'll just start a little bit with myself. I mean, I sort of first came across Buddhism properly, or the Dharma as we call it, the teaching and the laws of the Buddha, when I was about 28 years old. I'd moved to England just prior to that, and really when that happened, I was looking for meditation. I was actually, and I knew a bit about meditation, and I wanted to learn how to practice it, and I wanted to learn how to do it, and I wanted to do it with other people as well. That was sort of where I came in, I suppose. And that's often how people come into contact with Buddhism, is via meditation, and it's obviously not the only way, and I'm sure other people have other stories about what sort of got them interested in Buddhism or involved in Buddhism. Maybe you studied it at school, or maybe you were influenced by it from some other way. If you maybe you're into psychology or something, and it came across your path, or maybe you're just generally attracted to the figure of the Buddha, or some of the connotations that you might have just picked up. It's rather a big thing in the world, so won't be surprised if you come across it and you've just been attracted to it. So for me, it was really a desire to learn to meditate, and then it just sort of took on a lot more interest for me from there. So, but it was definitely a mind thing for me, for sure. I played a lot of sports as a young man. Still play a little bit. Mainly cricket, which is my thing. And I mean, if anyone's played any sports or probably try to do anything, you very quickly get a sense that the mind is central to what you're trying to do. I mean, if you really try and do something, I just used to find that when I tried to play cricket, if I was in a positive and confident and happy state, I seemed to be able to play a lot better. That was one little inkling that I wanted to work with the mind. Another one was when I became a door-to-door salesman, and maybe that's surprising or not, but that was a big part of being a door-to-door salesman, was how you sort of developed your attitude and your approach to what you were going to do for the day. I was like I was 100% commission selling things door to door. And it was quite hard work, and it could be quite difficult if you weren't in a positive state of mind, and you would come home with nothing sometimes. So that was quite an interesting, real experience of how, yes, the way that I approached something and the mindset that I had beforehand actually made a big difference to what happened next. I mean, the people that I work for in door-to-door sales, they were quite uncompromising about this, and they sort of believe that virtually any sort of obstacle can be overcome just by sort of taking the right sort of positive attitude into it. And yeah, there's definitely something in that, and I really got a lot from that. Definitely, yeah. So that was sort of my sort of initial, I think. It definitely sort of was a little pointer towards meditation, and then later, I could see with what I learned about Buddhism, I could see a lot of what I was interested in. And maybe some of these themes I've just already raised will come up again here tonight with this story. So we've had on this Thursday night class, we've been going back to the time of the Buddha on Thursday nights, and that's what we'll do tonight for story time. So. This figure, the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, and I hope you've all had a sense of who the Buddha is already, even if you haven't been to a Thursday night class. Maybe you've heard about his life already in some way. I hope so. Because for me, I find I can turn over the same stories from the life of the Buddha again and again, and still always draw interest and inspiration from them. They're wonderful stories, and you may or may not know this, but Buddha is, or the Buddha, that's not his name. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, and or Siddhartha was his first name, and Gautama was his sort of family or clan name. And Buddha is like a title. Buddha means awake, and so he's one who is awake. That's his title, and that's what he's commonly known by, the one who is awake. And the Buddha, this enlightened person, he was, he was born in sort of what would be now Nepal, and in 2,500 years ago, he would travel fairly widely, but mostly on foot, which meant he spent his life and career in the northern part of ancient India, and so that is a very particular time and place. In his own lifetime, he was even within his own lifetime, he was very famous and renowned, and people who met him were changed by meeting him. People who'd met him were changed by them, and he very quickly influenced a lot of people. And people tried what he suggested. People learned to meditate. People recited the things that he had said previously, and they tried to remember them. And this had the effect of spreading this awakened state to a lot of different people. So he walked around, place to place, meeting people, one-to-one, groups of people. He met them as a person, and his enlightened, awake consciousness would wake others up. And that effect made him very well known and very well renowned, and he was revered by all sorts of people, including wealthy people and kings and politicians as well as everybody else. He didn't discriminate who he taught the Dharma to, but these were some of the people that he was known to have been associated with, and who wanted to know him and actually would consider him a teacher, and they might be a great king of India, but they would still sort of he was their teacher, and they would consider themselves his disciple. Yeah, so before that, though, he was alone, and he was alone by choice. He went alone for a very specific reason. Siddhartha Gautama, he was actually a young prince who had left his home on a quest for truth, on a spiritual quest. And that quest, don't have time to unpack that story. That is a great story, but we don't have time to unpack that tonight. But that led him through quite a number of trials and practices, and trying things out and taking life very, very seriously, and learning how to work very specially with his mind and experience different states of consciousness. And he was taught that. He became part of that culture of that time, expanding the mind, training the mind. And he was very, very wholeheartedly dedicated to that. But the last part of his actual journey to enlightenment, he took that journey alone, and he took that journey in the jungle, under a tree, on his own. So even just that in itself, you can imagine the kind of qualities that he had as a human being to take that kind of step, to step off on his own and follow through his quest on his own in a jungle, under a tree. So already that image starts to draw up some different kind of qualities, and these are the qualities that I want to draw out tonight with this story. These qualities of, I suppose, heroism and bravery and courage. Because when you meet Devadatta, you'll see why they're important. So the Buddha is one of Siddhartha Gautama's names, but he had other names that also drew out some of these qualities. So he might have been known as, for instance, the Jinnah, which means great conqueror. He was known as Mahavira, the great or noble hero. Also Dharma Raja, which means king of the law or king of truth. So you've got conqueror and hero and king. So these are quite vigorous, and they give a different feel to perhaps what other people might sort of initially think of the Buddha as. So we could in another type of class we might go into, well, what exactly was he victorious over, or what is this law that he was the king of? But I'm hoping that the story that we're going to tell will illustrate some of that, and hopefully the story will speak for itself. So as I said, he was from this clan. As it turns out, it was a warrior clan that he was from, a warrior tribe, and during his life and career, a lot of his relatives and friends and cousins and uncles and nieces and aunties and everything, even his own son, became followers, became disciples of his. He went off, he gained enlightenment, but he did come back and he did connect with his own kin. And one of those characters was his cousin Devadatta, the character of our story tonight. Well, really the story is about the Buddha, but this character Devadatta draws out some qualities of the Buddha which he might not have been aware of. Because this guy Devadatta was jealous, and out of his jealousy he was quite vengeful, and he's completely wicked, bad guy. And well, initially what it was, he was very talented as well, and he was very he had the capacity to learn from the Buddha very quickly, and he was able to practice what the Buddha taught. So he had this wicked streak to him and this jealous side to him, but he was able to still practice meditation, for instance. And he was able to practice meditation to the degree where some psychic powers became available to him. And in Buddhism, psychic powers aren't really given very much weight of opinion, really. They're something that can become part of a depth of concentration and meditation. Even now people will recognize the psychic powers can be developed, but they're not something that you would really work for, or that is not the point of what the Buddha was teaching, but it was part of something that you could develop. And Devadatta was good at developing concentration and mindfulness, and he was able to cultivate these, what they call siddhis, these psychic powers. And he used these psychic powers actually initially for his own lot in life, really. And one of the things, his own influence, he initially, I suppose it's all around the same time. So he's a disciple of the Buddha, and he's got some influence in that Sangha, spiritual community. But that influence that he has in the spiritual community is not really enough for Devadatta. And he goes to the Buddha eventually. And this is well into the life of the Buddha. Certainly not at the end of the Buddha's life and career, but well into it. And he likes the look of what the Buddha has got, or thinks what he thinks the Buddha has got. The Buddha wouldn't think of it in these terms, but he likes the idea of having some sort of power over the Sangha. And so he says to the Buddha something along the lines of, okay, so all right, you've done very well. This is you've helped many people. There's all these enlightened beings, and we've all learned so much. You've given so much, and look at us now. We're this great Sangha. But I think it is time for you to retire. It really is. You're old now. You should rest. You should take it easy. And I'll lead the disciples. It will be fine. I'll lead the Sangha. You retire and take it easy, and I'll take it on. It'll be fine. It'll be okay. This is what he said. And he for his effort there, he received a massive rebuke from the Buddha. basically along the lines of, well, I wouldn't even leave the Sangha to even my chief disciples, Sariputra and Moggallana. Even to them I wouldn't leave the Sangha. So much less you, Devadatta, and go away, basically. So you can imagine he didn't take this particularly well, but he was dismissed. And what he tried to do then was he wasn't going to be defeated by that, and he used his powers to influence somebody who was in actual political power. And this was a prince called Ajatasattu, the son of a king, the king Bimbisara, and he used his psychic powers to sort of make the prince think that he was a great spiritual leader, and then took him on as a disciple. So he sort of put himself in a position of spiritual hierarchy to the prince even, and the prince was so impressed by what he could do psychically that he became a disciple of Devadatta. And then once he became a disciple of Devadatta, Devadatta used this influence of Ajatasattu to try and basically kill the Buddha. He was that angry and twisted and crazy about this need to be the Buddha, I suppose, in a way, or be the chief of the Sangha, that he just decided to kill the Buddha. And he managed to convince Ajatasattu, the prince, to give him mercenaries, or put mercenaries under his power, and he sent the mercenaries to kill the Buddha. And then he sent more mercenaries to kill those mercenaries, and then more mercenaries to kill those mercenaries, presumably just to try and not have the whole thing come back to him. But as the mercenaries approached the Buddha, or the Buddha saw them coming and saw the whole situation coming, and was always, it seems, at a step ahead of Devadatta. And when the mercenaries came to kill him, he just simply converted them to the Dharma and taught them and made them his disciples. So that plan didn't work, and Devadatta thought, right, I'll take it on myself. So the story goes that the Buddha would frequent a particular mountain and stay by a particular mountain. And so Devadatta positioned himself on this mountain, and as the Buddha was walking by himself along this mountain track, Devadatta perched himself high on a cliff, and he somehow or another got a big stick and let loose a great big boulder, and sent this boulder down to land on the Buddha's head to kill him. It didn't kill him, it didn't hit him, but it did splinter off, and a piece of the stone hit the Buddha's foot and drew blood. So, I mean, the Buddha was unmoved, but the Sangha was not unmoved by this incident. It was probably, I could imagine it, well, I don't know, I could imagine it having quite a shock on people. Even if they were aware it happened to Devadatta or not, but they were aware that this is what was happening, because the Buddha not only rebuked Devadatta face to face, but he also warned others and said, look, this is what's happening. This he wants the Sangha, and I'm not sure what he's going to stop, what's going to stop him trying to get that. And so when the Buddha was nearly crushed by a stone, his disciples then decided to really gather around him and protect him, and he'd be staying in a hut or in a cave or wherever he was, and the disciples would sort of guard where he was staying with sticks or stones or whatever they wanted to use, but the Buddha virtually never slept. He was meditating most of the night anyway. He didn't have a lot of need for sleep. The way his consciousness was, and he saw what the disciples were doing, trying to protect him, and he came outside. And he just dismissed him. He said, there's no need for you here. I don't. The Buddha needs no protection. The Buddha does not need protection. Go. And they would have to melt away and do something else, and he would go off alone. No fear whatsoever. The next famous attempt on the Buddha's life from Devadatta involved Devadatta getting one of Ajatasattu's elephants. We actually know the name of this elephant. It's called Nalagiri. So we've got the name of this elephant. Nalagiri was drugged and made crazy. Devadatta orchestrated all this. And when the Buddha was out on his alms round collecting food and walking along, the elephant was drugged and made crazy and set loose on the Buddha. And when the mad elephant came to the Buddha faced the elephant fearlessly. And this is sometimes represented in images of the Buddha standing with this fearless mudra. It's called the Abaya Mudra. Abaya means fearless. And this incident with the mad elephant, the Buddha met this mad elephant, but his consciousness, his compassion, the depth of his mind seemed to quell the madness of the elephant, and the elephant calmed down and didn't harm the Buddha. So these are some of the stories that we know about Devadatta's attempt on the Buddha's life. And ultimately, he decided to try and do something that in Buddhism is considered probably one of the worst things that you can do. So I wonder if it would be fair to say that it would be on par with trying to kill the Buddha. And that is to create a sort of split in the disciples of the Buddha, to create a schism. And I think there is really something in this idea of a sort of divide and conquer situation where you manipulate and try to. You've got a spiritual community all participating in an effort towards enlightenment, not just for themselves, but for the benefit of all beings. Like in the same spirit that we just did that Metta Bhavana meditation, and what Priyavajra was saying about when I'm happy, other beings are happy. When I'm well, other beings are well. When I'm free from suffering, other people are free from suffering. I can relate to, I'm more, I'm bigger. And you could call that the spirit of the Sangha, is that growth and development of the individual that permeates a group of other people, and that contact spreads in all directions. And to then try and undermine that process, first of all, I don't think you're going to get very far, but to try and do that is like the ultimate waste of your time. You're basically trying to dedicate your whole self in a very calculated way to just evil deeds. And Devadatta got caught up in this, even after attempting on the life of the Buddha. He couldn't live with the situation, and so he tried to sort of undermine it as best as he could. And but obviously, again, he failed. It was never going to really work. And at some point, he became quite sick, Devadatta, and he did actually realise the errors of all his ways, and he actually set out to just fess up to the Buddha and presumably just bow down and ask for forgiveness. But it was too late. He was too sick, and he died. He didn't make it, and he sort of fell into a hell realm after death. And that is the story of Devadatta. So not a particularly happy life. And hopefully it's drawn out some of the context of the life of the Buddha, and what it wasn't all flowers and meditation and deeds of loving kindness all the time, and it was the real world that we still live in today, and it was something that the Buddha had to deal with even after his enlightenment. So yeah, I suppose we can easily think that getting involved in meditation and Buddhism, that somehow we want to believe that will make the Devadattas of this world disappear, or it will make, perhaps we can convert the whole world and make everything perfect. But you can see, even from, if the Buddha still had to deal with this, well then surely we will too. So it's quite an important and useful story. And the other thing to say, I just want to pick up this point I made at the end about Devadatta going to this hell realm. So Buddhism does have karma, rebirth, and a sort of a cosmic view of what is going on. And that involves rebirth, and that's a whole topic. Do have a good think about rebirth, and even try to learn about what Buddhism says about rebirth, because it's very informative to our lives. Whether or not you want to take that as a belief now or never, or just something to be open to. But even Devadatta, and even who illustrates some of the most wicked and evil people from the Buddhist canon, Buddhism doesn't say that Devadatta is going to hell forever. He's done something bad, and he will purify that karma. But that's not an eternal situation. Nothing's an eternal situation in Buddhism. Everything's changing. That's what Buddhism's telling us all the time. Everything is changing. And even the most evil deeds and time in hell, or hell on earth, it's changing. It's constantly changing. So even the story of Devadatta it draws out something of hope and positivity. So I've got some more points to make about the story, but we'll have a break. I hope it's stimulated some questions and some thoughts from you guys. Do chip in, dive in with anything you like, or even anything. Say anything you like, and tell us where you're from, and tell us who you are, and give us your questions. We'll have a short break in a minute, and we'll come back. We'll do a bit more meditation, and then Priyavajra will join me, and we'll see what you've got to say. So I think that will do for now, and we'll have a short 5-minute break, and then we'll see you back shortly. Thanks very much.
Okay, so welcome back. That was a very entertaining talk from Sanghajit. I really appreciated it. A lot of richness there. We learned quite a lot about the Buddha, quite a lot about the Buddha's cousin, and actually quite a few interesting things about Sanghajit's life. So we got quite a lot in there. So I'm going to lead you through a short meditation, and then Sanghajit will follow up with some more information or about his talk, or talk about the talk if you like. But first we're going to do a meditation. I'm not going to say anything about it this time. I'm just going to take you straight through it. So I suggest you make yourself as comfortable as you can. It's really important to be comfortable when you're meditating. And probably, as I say, close your eyes. If you're uncomfortable closing your eyes, then perhaps just turn the lights down and just have a soft focus on the ground in front of you. So to start with, I want you to just sit quietly, not doing anything at all. So we're just going to sit for a few seconds actually. Just sit quietly, just be still, and allowing the mind to settle. So if you've got a glass full of muddy water, and you just leave it, the mud starts to settle and the water becomes clear. You can just imagine that you're sitting still. All the mud in your mind is settling. The mind is becoming quieter as the mud settles, and the mind becomes a bit clearer. Just allowing that to happen. And as the mind starts to clarify, you may notice that you're breathing. You might notice the breath moving in and out of the body. You may sense the breath moving in and out of your mouth or your nostrils. Or your chest lifting and then settling down again. Or the abdomen moving. You may notice the breath at any of those points. So just become aware of the breath in whatever way is easy for you. So we're not trying to change the breath, we're not even trying to calm the breath. It may calm of its own accord, but we don't need to try and do that. All we need to do is notice it, to just be aware of it. To just be conscious of it in a very gentle way, in a kindly way. So the same kindness that we brought to ourselves in the previous meditation, That's still there. We still want that. We still want a kindly attitude to ourselves. We don't want a judgmental attitude. I don't want you telling yourself that you're doing it right or wrong or anything like that. We're simply, very simply, in a very gentle and very kindly way, becoming aware of the breath. That's all we're doing. So just sitting with the breath, just noticing it. And when we're in contact with the breath in this way, it can be very grounding. It settles the mind, calms the body. So we're not having to do very much at all at the moment, are we? We're just simply noticing. That's all we're doing. Noticing what's going on. The breath moving into the body. Then there's a tiny pause and it starts to leave the body. And sometimes the breath is deep and sometimes it's shallow. Sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's quite slow. We're not trying to alter it. We're just watching. And if at any time your mind starts to wander, which it probably will, that's fine. We just notice that too. Oh, the mind's thinking about what I'm going to have for supper. I've just remembered I forgot to get some milk. That's what the mind does. And that's fine. It's not wrong. It's what your mind does. If that happens, accept it. Send yourself warmth and kindness. And then we just return our attention to the breath. And as Sanghajit was saying, if we can do this with positivity and warmth and kindness and acceptance, then you'll find the whole experience becomes quite pleasurable, quite enjoyable. You feel grounded and settled. The mind quietens, the body stills. It can be a sense of letting go, of not really having to do anything at all. You can't really get this wrong. Whatever happens, that's just part of the meditation. Even if your mind is whirring away like a washing machine on full spin cycle, just watch it. Just enjoy it. Let it entertain you. It's not wrong. It's what the mind's doing. And what I want you to do now is I want you to find one place, one point if you like, where the breath is quite vivid for you. Quite easy to notice. Quite easy to sense. So that might be your nostrils if you breathe through your nose, or it might be your lips if you breathe through your mouth. It might be the chest moving up and down. Or it might be deeper down, further down in the abdomen. But your whole body is affected by the breath. Your shoulders respond to the breath. If you're really sensitive, even your hands respond to the breath. So just find one place where you can easily focus on the breath. And just let your attention stay at this point. And just start to enjoy the rhythm of the breath. Let go into the rhythm of the breath. Just let it hold you and enjoy it. So we're just going to bring the meditation to an end now. So perhaps opening your eyes and bringing yourself back into the room. Okay, good. I hope that went well for you. And so what we're going to do now is, as I say, Sanghajit's going to talk about his talk, say a few words about one or two of the things that came up in his talk. And then we're going to respond to some of the questions that you've given us. So, first of all, to you, Sanghajit.
Thank you. Yeah. So in our little break, Priyavrajra pointed out quite rightly that I'd mentioned something that needed a bit of explanation. I mentioned karma and rebirth, and so I need to say something about that. So karma is dealt with like really. There's a Buddhist text that's really famous, an old Buddhist text that's really famous, and it starts with karma right at the very beginning, and it says your experiences are preceded by your mind, led by your mind, produced by your mind. If you speak or act with an impure mind, suffering will follow. If you speak or act with a pure mind, happiness will follow. And it's as clear and plain as that in this right at the beginning of this very famous Buddhist text. And this is a saying. This is a recording of a saying that goes right back to the Buddha. This is something that they learned off by heart, and probably one of the first things that they would say if somebody said to them, "What does the Buddha teach?" And this really is ultimately the essence of what karma is all about. Is that if you speak or act out of three main things really. If you speak or act out of greed and craving, suffering follows. If you speak or act out of hatred, suffering follows. If you speak or act out of ignorance, suffering follows. That's what follows. And it tends to follow sort of to the degree which it was impure, or to the degree which it was, I suppose you could say evil, not good, bad, not helpful to you or to anybody else. And then at the same time, happening at the same time, all the time, is the opposite. That if you speak or act, and I mean the text says speak or act, but of course we know that if you start thinking things, or you don't say or speak or act at all, but you're being influenced in your mind by greed or hatred or silliness or drunkenness, you will tend to speak or act. So you could include the mind. There's the body, the speech, and the mind. And the opposite is true all the time. Both are true, happening at the same time. Is that if you speak or act out of generosity, faith in other people, confidence, happiness, well-wishing, happiness will follow that. And that's a very central Buddhist thing. Now, it's easy for us to understand that. It's actually not that hard to understand. But the matter is a matter of the heart. It's not. Reciting it and saying it all the time is very, very helpful. But on the level that it actually starts to filter down into your heart, there's a famous story of the Buddha speaking to his disciples about, I guess, the nature of his experience and the nature of his enlightenment. And he described it as there's a thorn buried deep in the heart of people. and I've found that thorn and I've plucked it out. And the thorn there is an image for this sort of greedy, selfish tendency, the silliness that we get into. That is the thorn, and it's deep in the heart of us, And the Buddha sort of found it and managed to dislodge the whole entire thing.
It's a lovely image, Sanghajit. It's a really strong image.
And then that plays out, because with all the best will in the world, dealing with somebody like Devadatta, you can't just do it in sort of, I just want to do the right thing. You could see that at times, well, for starters, he never lost his equanimity with Devadatta, no matter what he did, even when he tried to kill him. He was strong and very clear with Devadatta and other people, but he never lost his metta. He never loved Devadatta any less. He doesn't even try and win Devadatta over and try and convince him. He's clear about what's possible. He doesn't go into a victim mode. He doesn't go into a big drama about it. He's not passive at all, but at the same time he doesn't retaliate either. So that's something that you could only do when someone's trying to kill you naturally if this thorn is plucked out. It's not something you can think your way through necessarily.
Lovely, thank you very much. So we're just going to see now I believe there are a few questions, and we'll see whether we can respond to them.
Yeah, so Priya wants to know if you're able to expand a little bit more on Buddhism in relation to psychic powers. And was the Buddha psychic?
Okay, so Ki is asking whether we can talk about the Buddha and whether he had psychic powers and how they might have been perhaps perceived at that time. So, very good question, lovely question.
Yeah.
Do you want to
No, you go.
Okay.
This is the type of question, when Priyavajra and I have a study group together, I go like this, and Priyavajra always has a very good answer for things like this.
Yes. So the Buddha himself did actually talk about psychic powers. He was asked whether he could walk on water and whether other people could walk on water. And he said, yes, it's perfectly possible to walk on water, walk through fire or any of those things. They're perfectly possible, but don't bother doing them. They're just showing off. So that was his attitude to it. I mean, a number of times he does demonstrate an incredible ability to know what other people are thinking. Whether that's a psychic power or not, I'm not sure. But he just is incredibly perceptive of other people. And that can seem quite often like a psychic power. But it may just be that he's very sensitive. But we see here in the story that Sanghajit said, where Devadatta develops psychic powers and then uses them to evil ends. So it does seem at the time of the Buddha that people did engage in learning to develop psychic powers, and sometimes they do not use them for good, and perhaps that's why the Buddha was discouraging of people learning psychic powers and adopting them, because they can be used for evil as well as good.
Yeah. I told you you'd have a good answer, didn't I? Is it? Do you know? If it's all right, I'm just going to plug something so there's an interview that you can watch on the London Buddhist Centre's website now, and it's an interview between Jnanavajra and Ian McGilchrist. And I won't say anything more about it, but I really encourage you to watch that interview. Do go and see it, and it will expand, hopefully, what you think about mind and consciousness, and hopefully open up some of these questions a bit more. But that's a bit of a plug from me.
Right, okay. There's something else you can watch and entertain yourself with. I think we might have a few more questions. We probably might have only time for one or two at the most, but let's see what we can.
Yeah, great. So Oliver wants to know if it's possible for people to use meditation for impure purposes, like Devadatta did.
Good question. Lovely. Thank you, Oliver. So Oliver wants to know, could you use meditation for impure purposes, evil purposes, perhaps?
It certainly wouldn't be Buddhist meditation. But I think, well, maybe I'm not answering this directly, but what with anything that you do or sort of achieve. So I want to say, I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, that's don't worry. Yeah, what very easily happens with any kind of, well, I find this a lot in meditation, is that you try to, and this probably isn't a direct answer to the question actually, but what I'm trying to talk about is how quickly you try and appropriate any kind of little achievement or sense of progress that you get, even in meditation. You very quickly, it's even when you're doing it with the very best intentions, you almost sort of always refer it back to yourself. So I think there's always an element of you just trying to make your little life or little situation better. So that is always there, and I think that's always there to be kind of noticed and looked at and be more aware of. Because if you don't be aware of that, perhaps you could start to use anything to the wrong ends, I think. But even doing, practicing meditation for a very long time and making some progress with it, it's very easy to sort of be doing it. There's always a little selfish sense in that, and you don't want that to grow, really. You don't want that to get any bigger than it already is. It's already there.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any more, Richard? One more?
Yeah, so first of all, so there's a question from Nina. She says, first of all, thank you for the meditation and talk. And then she wants to know, she says the expression the Buddha used with Devadatta of much less you, when he was trying to get the Buddha to sort of hand over the Sangha to him. Yeah. She finds that quite provocative. And do you have any thoughts on that?
So that's Nina?
That's Nina from New York.
Yes. Nina from New York, and she's asking,
the expression of the Buddha used of much less you.
Right, much less you. Right.
So when Devadatta says, I will take over the Sangha, he says, I wouldn't hand over the Sangha to Sariputra or Moggallana, his sort of chief disciples, much less you, Devadatta. Yeah, it's quite strong. And suggesting that it might be sort of provocative, and maybe you could imagine it even sort of making him want to retaliate more, perhaps. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Priyavajra?
No, good answer. Lovely answer. Thank you, Sanghajit.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think it does draw out that he's not really going to compromise. He will call this spade a spade. He won't. He's not afraid for his life, the Buddha, and he will call Devadatta for what he is and where he actually fits. Whether Devadatta wants to accept that or not, he will say, this is where you're at, really, and I wouldn't hand it over to anyone, much less you. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you very much, Sanghajit. Thank you for a very entertaining talk and some great answers to questions. All right, so what I want to mention now is that Sanghajit and I do these talks, and we do these talks because we want to spread the teachings of the Buddha, and we're very happy to do it. We're not paid to do it. We don't receive a penny. And in front of me is the tech team that's organising and doing all the wiring and the sound and everything like that. And they're not paid either. They're volunteers. So we don't make any money out of this, none at all. We don't want to make any money out of this. We just want to spread the teachings of the Buddha because we think they've helped us, so they may help others. But nevertheless, it does cost money to make this all work. It costs money for the internet connection, it costs money for the equipment, and the equipment has to be replaced and so on. So if you've enjoyed this talk, and I hope you do have, you can consider contributing anything really, from a few pence to a few pounds, that would help keep these talks going and enable us to keep spreading the teachings of the Buddha. So if you can do that, we'd be very grateful, and so would a lot of other people. Okay, so that's my request for generosity. And so we're going to end now. I hope you've enjoyed the session. I've enjoyed it very much. And we're going to end with something called the Transference of Merit. So whenever we do something positive like this, you're doing something very positive just by listening to us. We're doing something very positive by spreading the teachings of the Buddha. And traditionally, that earns something called merit. And what's the best thing you could do with this merit that you've earned? You give it away. You give it away to the universe. So we're going to do this. We're going to give the merit of all of us, and you can join in with this. We're going to recite some words. We'll recite it together in unison, and you might like to join in.
In unison?
In unison.
Okay.
May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existence is my possessions, and my merit in all three ways, I give up without regard to myself, for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Have a good week. I really do wish that to you all. Have a good week. Keep well. And perhaps we'll see you again next week. So thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.